everybody, and welcome to Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. I have a very, very, very special guest
That's
for
three
you all
varies.
today.
Yeah.
That's three varies. We could even add some more. I have my dear friend, Randy Rogel, joining me today. And Randy and his lovely girlfriend, Cynthia, came to Santa Fe. They're visiting Benjamin and me. And I thought, what more perfect man, what more perfect mind to get inside than Randy's beautiful mind. He's one of the most extraordinary men I know. So today we're going to get inside the right male mind.
I'm going
Randy.
to make Lisa my agent after this is over.
So Randy, why is Randy here other than just being a very, very dear friend? Let me tell you a little bit about him. So Randy Rogel is a television, film, and stage composer and writer. He has won 3 Emmy Awards, 3 ladies, and he's been nominated for 10. He has a Peabody Award, among many others. If you go to his home, he has the most beautiful display case of statues I've ever seen of awards. He was on staff for Warner Brothers Studios for 10 years, and he has written a lot of animated series, including Batman. He also wrote for Animaniacs and did most of the songs. Many, many, many people are familiar with that series, especially if you have kids. He worked for Steven Spielberg, and then he went on to work for Disney. Currently, Randy is working on 2 stage musicals, and he's doing a concert series for Animaniacs in theaters around the country. So if you're a fan, look him up. He may be coming to a theater near you.
We're headed to the East Coast at the end of this month.
Yeah, where are you going to be?
We'll be in
Randy?
Washington, D.C. We'll be in Montclair, New Jersey, and we'll be in New York and on Long Island.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's a good show. It's a Warner Brothers licensed show of the music and the voice actors too, the famous voice actors. If you know the show, you don't even have to know Animaniacs, and you don't have to be a kid. Most of our audience are adults.
Wow.
Anyway, I just want to say something too. It's just a real honor because Benjamin and Lisa are dear friends for Cynthia and I, and it's really a joy and an honor to be on your podcast. So,
well, thank you for being here. And the funniest thing is, Randy they've been here now for a couple of days visiting, and Randy was like, and what are we going to talk about? And what do I have to contribute? And I have to say that Randy is here because, first of all, he wouldn't be our dear friend if we just didn't have a world of respect for who this man is.
I've seen her build this business, and I am in awe.
Well, we are super fans of each other.
We have a mutual admiration society.
Yes, we do. But the reason I thought that everyone would enjoy hearing Randy's story today is because it's so easy as women for us to really, what we do is we look at our own life experience as women, and we hear so many awful stories about men and how they take advantage of women, how, we always get the short end of the stick when it comes to marriage and divorce and children and all. And Randy has really a quite remarkable story. He's been married and divorced 3 times, and he was willing to come on today and share his experience with his 3 marriages and divorces. Randy's such a wonderful man, and I know a lot of women, including women who are in my 12-week Emotionally Naked Dating course, if they heard that a man had been married and divorced 3 times, they would just say, next. That's
what I would say. I wouldn't marry me.
Well, I would.
Oh,
and
you're so sweet.
There's a lot of reasons why, because you really were doing, Randy, what you thought was the right thing in each of those scenarios. So let's talk a little bit about this. You've been married, as I said, 3 and divorced 3 times.
Yes.
And
not something I'm particularly proud of.
Yeah, I know you carry a lot of shame over this.
Yeah.
But as we were talking last night, the 4 of us, and you were sharing your story, I really felt so much compassion for you and who you were and why you married these women. And let's talk a bit about that. So you were married the first time. How old were you?
25. And I was living in Europe. I was a graduate of West Point, so I served in the military, and they posted me to Europe. And I was living in Italy, where I know you lived too. You were in Milan. I was down closer to Venice and Vicenza area. And then, I met a girl, an Italian girl, and we fell in love, and we dated for those. And then I was leaving Italy, and I would never see her again. And there, for my generation, and for the way I was raised, and kind of the sort of the rigid mentality they teach you at West Point, it was like, well, it's time. It's time for me to get married. It's time for me to have a child. And she was saying, "Gee, are we never going to see each other again?" And I thought, well, no. So we got married, and it was lovely. But all we knew of each other was that small little world we were living in. And she knew me as a young military officer. And I had always wanted to work in film and television and stage. She didn't know that part of me. And when we came back to the United States, we had a boy, wonderful son. And we just quickly realized this was kind of a mistake. She wanted something very different than I wanted. And if you can have such a thing as a good divorce, we never went to a lawyer. Of course, we didn't have much, but we never saw a lawyer, anybody. We just went to a judge. And I remember him saying, "Boy, this is the easiest divorce I've ever seen." And then she very quickly married. So she's very into a church, and she married a guy in her church, and they went on. They've had 2 kids, and we've stayed very close friends. I have a relationship with her that is similar to the relationship I have with my sisters. And so I became a single dad, and then I met another woman.
But before, let's go into you being a single dad. You were 25 years old?
Well, by the time Ryan was born, I was 27, I think. Yeah, 26, 27. We had a son pretty quickly.
So you were 27 years old, and how old were you when you got divorced?
I was probably, let me think about that. I was 30, 31.
So you were like 30 or 31?
We were married 5 or 6 years now. Gee, I'm getting old. I don't remember all that. We were married just before I left. Yeah, we were married 5 or 6 years. So whatever that puts us at.
So you were married 5 or 6 years, and then you had this little boy.
Yeah, little boy was like 3 or 4 or 5. Yeah.
And what was it like for you to get divorced with this little boy?
Well, it was hard because, being a single dad. At first he was with, I took up a job. I met another woman. And so he went back and forth between us. But then I wanted to work in film and television. I'd started working more. I went into corporate life, believe it or not, because I needed to make money. And Procter & Gamble had hired me, and I got promoted several times. And then digital systems recruited me away, and I was traveling a lot. But I had always wanted to work in film and television. So I decided I came down to Los Angeles. I slept on a friend's couch while I was away. So I obviously didn't want to bring my son at that point. And so he stayed with his mother for that year. And then my wife at the time, and she had a boy from a previous marriage, came down. And so we were married, and she was really something, drop dead gorgeous and just great on camera, did a lot of commercial
Is this your
work.
second wife?
Yes. And it didn't really happen for her in L.A., which is a shame because, well, when you go to L.A., everybody's at 10, So she'd done very well up in the Northwest where we were. So,
but you knew her from the Northwest.
Yeah, from the Northwest.
So you met her before you came to
Before I came
LA.
down, that's right.
How long between your first marriage and meeting her?
Probably 4 years.
So you were single for 4 years.
And then I met her in that time. And then so I was married to her probably 4 years after I got divorced, 4 or 5 years after I got divorced. Yeah, that sounds right, 4 or 5 years.
And she had a son.
She had a son from a previous marriage.
Okay.
So he went back and forth between her and the father. And then we came down here. I came down first and kind of established myself that, for a few months. And she came down. And then once I had a job working, which was about 10 months, then my son came down. And we were married together. I mean, I have sort of, I guess, a pattern. It would be like 8 to 10 years. I guess, you know somebody and you're married to them. And so when we ended up getting a divorce, that was when I said, that's it. I'm just not good at marriage. I'm never going to get married again.
And why did you get divorced? What happened?
Well, for what reasons people grow apart. And my career, I think I should put the blame on me. I think I was totally into my work. That was what I did. And so I think they would think I was neglectful, because I would always be working, always be writing, always be composing, and distant in that sense. So I guess you'd have to ask them. But that wife too, contacted me about a year ago. We had a very lovely conversation. She kind of apologized to me, and I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I failed you too." And it was sort of a lovely retouching, and I wish her well. But for me, it was about building success, building a career, building a life, and I'd always been taught that, to become an accomplished person, to be a man of means. That's what I wanted to do, and so I think we grew distant, and for all kinds of other reasons that people, for those of you out there who've been married before and divorced, you can have problems with money, you can have problems with one trying to be controlling of the other, one can be jealous of the other, one, or people just become unhappy, or people find somebody else, they find their joy in somebody else. So for me, I really put the blame on me. I was the one that was distant, and they needed more of me. And they did say that to me.
Did they? Mm-hmm. And Randy, was there fighting? Was there arguing? Was
there? And I don't like that. But there's, when it gets to the end, there always is arguments and fighting. And then if everything was good, then you would never get divorced. It's always when it goes bad. And so we went our separate ways, and that kind of crushed me. And I thought, all right, that's it. I'm never getting married again.
And did you feel like a failure?
Oh, boy, did I feel like a failure. You can't go through divorce at least for me, you really do feel like a failure. Even if it's not your fault, which I think it was my fault, I still think you say it failed. And so, and plus if you have a child, you feel like you've failed the child, because now the child's in a broken home between two parents. More and more in America now, you see, I think the divorce rate is over 50% now. Right. It's higher in Europe.
Well, and it's higher, it goes up for second and third marriages.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, second marriages,
I fall right into that category.
Yeah, it's 67% for second marriages and 74% for third marriages.
Wow, you see, I fall right into that. I'm like a textbook case.
Wow.
But then when I got divorced, my career was soaring. I was performing and on staff at a major studio working on hit shows. And a lot of women did approach me. Mm-hmm. And one of them, I dated some, but being a single dad made it harder. And then I met one. She was a fabulous singer, and she was hired to come in on one of the songs I was recording for I'd written the main title to a television show. And I had known her sister who worked at Warner Brothers. I said, "Gee, your sister's really cute." So she came in and says, "Well, I told her that, and here's her number." So we began dating, and she was right at that place in her life where she.
How old was she?
She was close to 40.
And you? How old were you?
The same. I was a little older. I was like 2 years older than her, and she had a successful career as a singer, traveling the world singing with famous people, while I was being a single dad, and so she really, really wanted to be married. And the first time we met, I remember telling her, I I just don't think I'm a good husband, and I don't really want to get married, you know. But we dated for a long, and I certainly didn't want to have kids anymore. You know, being a single dad.
And how old was your son at that point?
Well, yeah, my son at that point was a teen, getting and you know, and that would require a lot of my attention too.
And Randy, you wound up, when you say being a single dad, he spent the majority of his time
Yes.
with you.
Yes, he did.
I think that that's really important for women to hear. Your wife, did she have your ex-wife had kids? with
Yeah,
her?
she remarried
Right.
someone in church, and they had 2 kids, and my son did spend time with her, but he was living with me.
But he was living with you, and
down in
she
Los
was
Angeles.
in another state.
Yeah.
She was in a completely
Different
different
place.
state. And
Yeah.
so you were building your career. You were here in Los Angeles and being a single dad to a little boy.
It was hard, and there came a time when he was in his early teens where he started to get into trouble because he was a bit of a latchkey kid. Because we lived in sort of a bedroom community, and I used to travel, you know, 30, 45 minutes at least into the studio. So he would ride his bike to school, but school was only like 2 blocks, 3 blocks away. But then he would come home earlier than me and be there, and then I would come home. We'd make dinner, do things like that. But he started to have, you know, act out, and I had to almost get out of the business. I mean, just all I did was I get up and I take him to school. I go get off or get him, pick him up, and I'd really be there for a while. And
Wow.
but he's turned out to be a fabulous,
Right.
kid.
Yeah, he's a great kid now.
very
but
successful too.
You
yeah.
really sacrificed for this kid.
Well, you do what you do. You do what you do. I mean, he was my son, and there were times where he would, like I said, when I came down, he lived with his mom, but this woman I had been dating really wanted to get married, and I was really resistant of it. And at one point, she said to me, "You know, it's not really fair that you lump me in with your other wives." Especially the more recent one, because like I said, my first wife, it was all very amiable. But she says, you know, that's not who I am. I would never do those things. And I began thinking, you know, what am I doing here? Am I stringing somebody along? And I mean, I do love her, and you know, what do I think I'm going to do better? No, she's a really terrific person, and I really thought, yeah, this is it. This one, I'm going to grow old and die with this person. But she really wanted to have a baby, and I said, that I don't want to do. So she said, okay. And we got married. But then she had quite a few siblings, and they all had children. And she came to me one day, kind of tears in her eyes, and she said, you really sure you don't? And I thought, well, if we're going to do this, you know, you're going to do most, you know, the changing of the baby at night and all that. Because, as you know, you spent your time traveling the world. I spent it as a single dad. Now I'm going, like I was off to the Goodspeed to do a lead role for several months. I in my contract, I negotiated to have her brought out, you know, every 2 weeks and all that. But still, we were separated for that time. But that was a couple of years after we got married. But she really wanted to have a baby, so I thought, well, all right then. But and I'd had a vasectomy.
Oh, no.
So I had my vasectomy reversed.
Oh, my goodness, Randy.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And it worked. I had full motility. So, but when a woman hits 40, or she might have been 41 time, it gets hard. You know, evolutionarily, the doc told me, you know, it's like an asymptotic line, just drops off fertility for a woman. So we just couldn't conceive. So we did the fertility treatment, the in vitro, and we had quite a few. I think we had like 6 or 7 eggs that were all fertilized, but they wouldn't stick. So it was really hard. It was really hard for her. It was hard for me, and so we adopted a little wonderful boy from China. Although we didn't go to China. It was a friend of ours was Chinese, was in L.A., and there was a family that was visiting from China, had a little boy. They had other kids, and they couldn't take care of him. So we met with them. So he was just a newborn. So we adopted him, and she was very, very happy with that. But again, then I was talking with a dear friend of mine who also went through divorce, you know, and because when she and I got divorced, that was it for me. I was like ready to kill myself. It was like I kind of shut myself up as like a hermit
After your second marriage.
And after my third marriage, after Elizabeth and I divorced.
After the third marriage.
It was really I'm saying this is I guess I jumped to the end of the story.
Yeah.
Is she and I we adopted a child, and then again I was off doing my thing, and she was raising. I mean, I was there, but she was doing most of the raising of our baby.
But she had agreed to that, right?
She had, but my friend said to me, you let her make a deal that in your heart you knew she couldn't keep. And that's your fault. And he was right. Because she can't do it all alone. And so, but I never suspected, when it really blindsided me when she wanted a divorce.
She came to you. Mm-hmm. How old was your son?
He was 3 or 4. He was very young.
Again.
Yeah. And so that one really put me back on my heels. And so when we divorced, and she'd found somebody else pretty quickly, because it takes like a year for all that to make its way through lawyers and courts. Mm-hmm. Like that. And when you have the day our divorce was final, she was married the next week, and they moved within the state, but a distance away. So I had to commute to see him.
Yeah,
so I was right back.
But wait, you talked about that last night, about how you had to drive a couple of hours each way to pick up your son.
She remarried, and they moved down into like around 70 miles away. Right. So we would meet in the middle, but it's Los Angeles. For those of you who don't know Los Angeles, we do have traffic. So I would drive down every other Friday or Friday, but I'd pick him up, and it would be a 2-hour drive down, a 2-hour drive back, and my poor little son was having to sit there for 4 hours, the 2 hours there. So I remember my friend calling me on the phone he says, how you doing? I said, yeah, I'm on my way, pick him up. And he goes, wow, that's really, he says, you're a good dad, right? I don't think so. He said, but for 2 hours down, 2 hours up, he said, that's got to be brutal. I remember saying, yeah, but it's okay, because I've only got 15 more years of this to go. But he's turned out fine. He's in college now out in Michigan. But when we divorced, that was it for me. And I thought, you have this introspective moment where I was alone. I didn't even go out of my house, I remember, other than go to the store. I would just be in my home for a month to 2 months at a time. And I remember looking in the mirror at myself, and I said, it's you. You can't be married 3 times, and it's not you. And I started doing some real deep introspection on myself. It was like, who are you, and what is it that you really want in life? And I really had to make that. And before, I had been trying to make someone else happy, even to the point when someone wanted to marry me, and I didn't really want to get married or even have a kid, but I loved her. So I did that. And then I thought, what do you want in your life? And that's what I began pursuing. And my girlfriend that I'm with now, I've been with her longer. We're going on 13 years now. She's a person I can tell anything to. The real measure of a great relationship, or one of them, is, does your partner make it safe for you to tell them anything? And she does. And we just have a terrific relationship. Well, you know Cynthia. So.
Well, and also Cynthia was very, very happily married prior.
Cynthia was happily married for 23, 24, 25 years. And this is just a little weird side coincidence. I had done a lot of theater too. I got known for doing Singing in the Rain. I did the Donald O'Connor role. Right. And I did that all over the country. Wow. And Warner Brothers was nice enough that they would let me go as long as I got my scripts and my songs in on time, they said, okay, you can go do that. So so it was really kind of fun, because when everybody else was partying, I would just be back in my hotel room writing and making sure, or the theater would always give me the rehearsal hall. I would go to use the piano there. So I ended up singing at the Fifth Avenue Theater in Seattle, which is a beautiful, big theater. It's like the Pantages that we have here in Los Angeles. And Cynthia had done the national tour of Singing in the Rain. So that was the big one. So I'd always heard of her. And we were scheduled to do the show together several times, but then each of us got booked doing something else. So I remember when we got to Seattle to do that show, I was doing 2 shows there back to back, playing leads in 2 shows. And they said, Cynthia Ferrer. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to finally meet Cynthia Ferrer. And when we met, she was married to Daryl. Daryl, he was like 20 years older than she was. And just a terrific guy. I met him just a couple of times, but I really, really liked him. But, he began to have, physical problems. He had complications from diabetes. So she and I were just colleagues. That's all. We worked together. We were friends. And at that time, believe it or not, my son was just getting ready to start junior high school. And I was going up there for 3 or 4 months, but it coincided like I was going to be there like September through December. It's like one of his quarters of school. And I said, look, there's no way I'm going up there and leaving you down here. So, you're going to come up here with me. And if you don't want to, then I won't do the show. And he said, and his mother lived up there too. And so it worked out perfectly. And I remember him saying, because he would go to school up there for that quarter, and he wanted to take ski lessons. So I said, oh, deal. You can do that, right? And then we went for a big ski trip together when the show was over after Christmas up in Canada. But so while we were there, he'd come to the show, and so he was in the elevator coming up to see me, and Cynthia ran into him. So Cynthia spent time with him over those months. She knew him as a little teenager while she was married to. So we were just friends.
Yeah.
And then years later, I'd heard that Daryl passed away. So I sent her a note, and I said, "Oh, Cynthia, I'm so sorry to hear about that." And she sent me a nice note. And she was working for Gary Marshall a lot, doing a lot of his movies, and they Happy Days. They made it into a musical. Yeah, they did. It was a big deal too. And she played the Marion Ross role, the mom.
Oh, she's perfect for that.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Gary Marshall just loved her, and so she did that around the country, and so we would kind of cross paths.
Yeah.
But she and I ended up, we got cast in a show together.
Oh.
So it was like running into each other again. And it was George M. And I was George M. because it was a heavy tap show. And she was my mother. How Freudian is that? Even though she's younger than me. So that's when we really started hitting it off again. And then we went our separate ways again. And so it was like this period over 10, 15 years that we would run in and out of each other's lives. And then we met at a friend's party. And we were both single, and so we dated. And it was really lovely. But I don't think either of us was ready, because we dated for a while, and then we went apart. And she went to a couple of years, 3 years went by. And then she came, and then we started dating, and then it really stuck, and we've been together ever since. So.
That's amazing. Well, you guys are an absolutely extraordinary couple. And
exceeded only by Benjamin and Lisa.
Well, what I love and what's unique is that the two of you have been together longer than any of the other women,
by far,
any of your wives, and you're not married.
For my part, neither of us are really obsessed with that. But for my part, when you're younger, when you're in your 20s or 30s, you're building your fortune, you're building a family together. Marriage makes all the sense in the world, which is why, by the way, just a little anecdote. I was talking to my son one time, because he's married now. I just love his wife. She says, she calls me Dad. I never had a daughter. She's so sweet, beautiful. And they just had a baby. The baby's now about a little over 1 year old. Total, they were down for Halloween, all that. Just a great little family. But he owns several acres up in the Northwest, and he does very well for himself. And he designs the chip, the chip that would go inside. He designed the inside of that chip. He's a real top-notch.
Wow, you're proud of him.
Electrical engineer. Yeah, I have an engineering degree, and I don't understand what he does. It's way beyond me. But we were walking one time. We were talking about, marriage, because it can be tough. And I said, you might think that a guy who's been married 3 times has no business giving anybody advice on marriage. But it's precisely because I have been married 3 times that I am exactly the guy.
I feel like I'm the authority.
I am the guy to tell you what not to do. So anyway, where I sidetracked myself. Where were we? I forgot the original point we were trying to make.
I have no idea. I don't know where you were going with
it must not have been important. But, yeah.
Well, I think.
Oh, I know what it was.
Yes.
She said that you're not married.
Yes.
But now, at our, I'm in my 60s, and so is Cynthia. The idea, we're not going to be having kids together. And, Cynthia's had her own very successful career. She owns her own home, several units. She's got her whole passel of friends. She's got her whole career. She doesn't need me at all, which is what is very attractive about her to me. And so, she lives with me. We live full time together. But the idea of getting married, I don't know what other than to legally encumber yourselves. And just because of my experience, I'm not really, crazy about that idea. But also, if you think about it, I have some friends who I would never name, but I don't think I have some people I know back in Hollywood. We're not so happily married, but they're kind of stuck together because of what would happen if they divorced, the financial hit and all that. And for Cynthia and I, if she came to me today and said, I don't like the way you're treating me, or like that, she could leave and still have the same life she had. The only reason we're together is because we want to be. There's nothing that makes us have to be together. So who knows for the future? But I will tell you, I've never been as happy. But maybe, throughout all of you out there listening, sometimes you have to go through the pain, but I hope you don't. I did, but you have to go through the pain before you figure it out. I guess I was a slow learner.
But Randy, what if Cynthia really, really wanted to get married? Like, you've been together for 13 years, and what if it really meant something to her? That the one time you could get it right, you don't do it, and all the times you did it wrong.
I don't know if I'm convinced that I'd get it right. Something that, do you remember the movie Groundhog Day? So it's a charming little movie.
Yeah.
And everyone looks at it as like a little fairy tale. But the one thing that hit me, I was talking, because we're writers, we're always examining the plot and the story and all that. We're taking it apart. And I remember talking to a friend about it. And as I made the point, he went, oh, yeah, you're right about that. Is the real takeaway for me from Groundhog Day was that because he was living the same day every day, and the next day nobody would remember anything that he did, he couldn't take anything for granted. He had to win her every day. He had to earn it every day. And that's kind of how I look at my life. And sometimes, I don't know, does marriage take that away?
Well, not in our case.
Oh, yeah, I know. You're extraordinary. I've seen some people, and a couple of my friends that once they married thought, well, I've sealed the deal, and this is, I don't really have to be a nice person anymore.
But that's not at all, where Benjamin and I are with
Well,
that.
you two are extraordinary. I think that's why we were really attracted to you as a couple, because you're like an inspiration.
But we love each other. But, Benjamin had been married twice, and I'd been married before. And, if he didn't want to get married either when we met. He had been...
It's a pattern for men, isn't it? And by the way, Benjamin is like the best. But they've met. Have they seen Benjamin?
Yeah, well, Ben, this is mostly getting inside Benjamin's mind.
I'm in Benjamin's chair today.
Yes, you are.
Now that's a place of honor.
But, I think that there was no pressure, and there was no, I didn't push Benjamin to marry me. In fact, I told him if he didn't want to get married, then we wouldn't. And it was completely his decision to do this.
Yeah.
And I do think that for us, it was a beautiful and miraculous thing. And I also think that there's something very special about two people who don't need to get married for all the reasons you said, who do it anyway out of true love. That it's out of love. We want to call each other husband and wife.
Yeah.
We love I think that there's something about two people getting married and making the choice to marry at our age when we didn't have to.
Yeah.
Right? When it wasn't about let's do it for kids or let's do it for religious reasons or let's do it for,
Yeah,
fill in
money
the
reasons.
blank.
Because,
Right.
yeah,
No, we did it for love. We did
I know,
it
I
for
can see
love.
that. I can see that.
So-
Well, I think I'm probably, for you out there, I'm probably damaged goods, but who knows? Maybe I'll move past all of that. I'm just being uncomfortably honest with you about, what my story was.
But what a shock and surprise it would be to Cynthia.
Well,
one day-
mean, Cynthia's the closest person to me in the world. I spend more time with her than anyone. And by the way, both my boys just adore her, just love her. That's a big deal.
Everybody loves Cynthia.
Yeah, that's a big deal. You want your kids to love your partner. And and we do so much together. We do a lot together. In fact, now she's actually been working with me. I've written this new musical, which is going into production, and they've had her involved in the casting, and she does a terrific. So we're finding ourselves working together on a professional level again. I mean, before we did shows together, but since then, she does her. She's mostly a performer. I'm a producer and writer in television, so we have separate careers.
And Randy, I want to go back for a minute to something that you shared because I think it's so important. You got married the third time despite everything that you wanted, despite your best wishes and intentions for yourself. And I really want to put, I think it's important to explore that a little bit further before we end, because look, you can say I wasn't there, or I got stuck, or, I was busy working, I didn't pay enough attention. I mean, all the things that you can say. But at the same time, you were highly responsible. You were a terrific father. You didn't bail on your responsibilities to these women, or to your kids. You showed up. In fact, you made huge sacrifices for your first son when you were trying to build your career and you saw that he was going,
But now his inheritance will be sizable. So
But you did what you needed to do. You showed up. You drove 2 hours back and forth to pick up your your adopted son. I mean, you really, you were not a slouch. I mean, you may have, had missed some things, and you can take responsibility and blame yourself. But with your third wife, she, you told her from the very start that you didn't want to get remarried. You were clear about that. And this is what a lot of women do. We see a guy that we like and we think, oh, but we hit it off and we're so great together. And why would you hold me responsible for all those other women? And yet you saw the same scenario playing out with her. Even after, you can take responsibility. And I know your friend said to you, you made a deal that you knew she couldn't keep. But she she also, pushed hard to get what she wanted.
Well, in her defense, she did come to me and say that I could sense the regret, because there's no doubt in my mind that she loved me. I mean, if I were to find out, if she would tell me like, oh, I was scheming all the time and I never loved her, I wouldn't, that would be a total shock. I mean, I think we really were in love. She really thought all this could work. And when it didn't, I remember she came to me and she said, I've broken every promise I made to you. And so I suppose our divorce could have been worse for that reason, and it wasn't. We made it through it. But the hardest part, again, is a child. But, I think she went into it also just as blind as I was in some ways. And then when the realization came that she realized, I really wanted you to marry, and I can see you're not happy. See, the truth is, now that I think about it, is she wasn't happy. But the truth is, I wasn't happy either. And I think she sensed that, and she goes, you married me out of a sense of obligation. You did it because I wanted, and that's not why I want to be married. And I could understand that. So.
But you did, and that's what happens.
I did. I did. And I grew up in kind of a conservative household. We didn't have a lot of money. My mom and dad were really great. And then I go off to West Point when it was an all-male academy. There were no women there. And then when I came out, I go in the Army where when you go to a military post, you're outnumbered, men outnumber women 20-1. It's just a real male environment. Then I go to Europe. I get posted to Italy where I can't speak a word of Italian yet, and in a military situation. So all of that to say is I don't really think I understood women. I never really saw a relationship. I was never schooled in that. And so I just did it as it came at me.
Right.
And so I made those mistakes. I have to say that, everything takes you where you are, because I was talking to another friend, Charlie, our friend, and we were just saying, we're really in the bonus rounds. Our lives are so good. I never thought, boy, there was a time when I thought my life is over. So you really can come back from it. But the trick is don't make those mistakes to begin with,
Well, we don't know what we don't know. It's partly why we've talked about what I do, what
Yes.
Benjamin and I are doing, and how...
And you do it so well, too.
Well, I think that there's, many, many people go through life and they do, that's just whatever life throws at them. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, here's the next person. Or, oh, look, I'm single. There you are. We have chemistry. Let's just do this.
And you find someone who's like enamored and likes you, and so that feels good. And you're thinking, well, okay, this is it's always going to be just like this.
And we're making these major life decisions, really not looking down and, out into the future and thinking things through and really thinking, does this person have the qualities of the life partner that I would really want? I mean, if I look back over my first marriage and many of the relationships I was in prior to Benjamin, I would never have been with those people if I had stopped and known what I know now.
Yeah.
And it's not just what I've learned through experience of being in those relationships. For me, it was that I woke up after I got out of my first marriage and I said, Lisa, you don't have another 13 years to waste. You need to take this seriously and figure out what you did wrong.
She was smarter than me. See, it took me a couple of more times. I got there, but she got there much quicker than me.
Well, I just knew that, I wanted to find real love. And I knew as I was doing a lot of personal growth work, Randy, what I was seeing was that I was becoming more conscious, more aware of, life, of manifestation, of how much control we really do have over the, outcomes and, by being intentional and by being smart. And so for me, I sat back and I realized that here I was trying to do the most important thing in life, which is to create a loving, lasting partnership. And I realized how little I knew about men, how very little I understood about male psychology, about what a man wants and needs from me as a partner. Right. I knew the things I was looking for, what I wanted or thought I wanted, but it's a two-way street in a relationship. And what I realized is that to love a man, you have to love and understand men. It's not just about loving.
Yeah, you have an amazing understanding of men, but maybe, that's just been your journey. But you, more than most women, you really understand men.
Well, thank you. I think partly, I didn't hit the jackpot when it came to my father.
Well, but you don't get to choose your dad.
No. Well, some people might say that we do. If I chose him, I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, I don't know how that works, but it just from my point of view,
right.
You're dealt that hand, and it's what what you do with it. So.
Yeah, I did not hit the jackpot in the dad department, and I knew that all men couldn't be like my father.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to, if I was going to be in this world, if I was going to have a loving partnership, I needed to really learn about good men, about who good men are. My dad was a player and a womanizer.
Yeah.
and a cheater, and among other things.
Yeah.
We could do a long, long list, and God bless his, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
I hope he's in a happier place. But yeah, I found a
And there
man.
are probably it'd be interesting to there are issues going on for your father. What
Wow.
what led him to where he was, and the relationship. We all go on this journey, and we want what we want.
And I know my father's history and background and where he came from. And, we can make all the excuses in the world, but I also believe very, very strongly that we, as adults, there comes a point where we have to stop blaming our parents for our lives and for what happened and forgive them and let them go and let go of those stories and move on and create the life that we want.
Yeah, I mean, that was really the journey in a big way that I had. One of the things I learned in like being able to, like I said, I'd be able to tell my girlfriend anything. You have to make it safe. It used to be like when I was younger, somebody would lie to me. Mm-hmm. I get like really mad. Like, I can't believe you lied to me. Now, if someone lies to me, the first thing I ask myself is, what did you do that made them feel so uncomfortable that they didn't think they could tell you the truth? Now, it's still a cowardly thing. You still shouldn't lie, right? I don't excuse that. But unless they're like a sociopath that enjoys lying, I don't have anything to do with people like that. Most people really do want to say the truth, but you have to make it safe for them to do that. And that was one of the lessons I learned. So.
Aw. Well, Randy, I think, from my perspective, I know you may be a different person today, but one thing I know about you is that you have a wonderful heart. And I know, even as I've listened to you talk about your past, that you were a good man. You were a good man. You've always been.
Oh, thank you, Liz.
You've always.
That means a lot coming from you.
Yeah, but I think you're really just one of the truly great men, and that you have a heart of gold, and things didn't work out in your 3 marriages, but you did everything you could to be a good father, to be a good ex. I think, you still did everything you needed to do, to end those marriages in the best possible way. And it had a very hard effect on you.
Yeah.
Because even though we may fail at something, it doesn't mean we didn't really try our best.
Yeah, you try to take your failures and learn from them. I just had more than most people usually do, I guess. But
well, you took the risk. You got married. A lot of guys just, they have one failure and they're done. They become avoidant. They won't try again. And here's the thing. You found a partner who's willing to be with you and not get married. A lot of women, Cynthia's unique, but even at her age, even at your stage of the game, many, many women, even if they've been married before, would want you and be pressuring you to get married. They wouldn't stay in a 13-year relationship without that.
Yeah. But I feel so close to Cynthia. It's like what you'd say. Basically, we are married, I guess, in that sense. It's just the legalities, and maybe it's because of what I went through before that I'm just nervous or scared about going through that again.
But my point being is very, very, very few women would go along.
And I wouldn't blame them.
And continue in a 13-year relationship with you and not want to get married.
Yeah.
That's very unusual. Most of the women I know, many, many women, even in their 60s and 70s, want to get remarried.
No, I understand that. And I we each need what is important for each of us. I'm not saying I would never change. I'm just, like I said, I think maybe I'm damaged goods in that sense. But I am ultimately loyal to Cynthia.
Well, yeah.
No, I can tell you she's safe with me for sure.
Well, and she understands, she knows who you are, and she gives you room to be that person.
One thing I did change with Cynthia, like I mentioned to all of you out there, I used to work all the time. I remember my third wife came out to me one time. She was going to bed, and she was a little bit upset with me because I was working and I had deadlines, and she wanted me going to bed with her. And I went, oh, okay. I did, but then I had to get up early, and so I was always fighting a deadline. With Cynthia, we always have coffee together in the morning.
Aw.
Even if I'm somewhere else and she is, we have coffee on FaceTime or Zoom together. There's been just a couple of times, but they're very, very